Oh man, talk about missed opportunities, Charles. I should have had that. You've got blackmail.
That would have been funny. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have my glasses on, and that excellent poster is. I can't tell. Is that Michelle Obama there, or who is that?
That's what's her name, Plaskett, who Dead Ep was texting during the. Remember,
Oh,
they had that email tranche of Epstein emails come out, and he was texting with Stacey Plaskett, the so-called delegate from the U.S. Virgin Islands, and like giving her things to say to jam up Trump.
is her hair straight there or curly? I can't tell.
Ah, well, Charles, this is white. What did Michelle Obama say she was doing about straightening out her hair?
Just get out of our hair.
Yeah,
But I think that
ridiculous.
that looks curly to me. Is it or is it straight? I can't
It's
tell.
curly. It's curly.
Oh, okay. There you go. No, this the poster is amazing, but the revelations that are coming out now, it's as if people are saying, you know what, now that the statute of limitations may be passed for a bunch of stuff that happened in 15, 16, maybe we'll let the public finally know what was really going on. And, we'll just, all the criminals will just walk away intact. Obama will get to keep his Obama list. The Clinton Foundation will get to, keep all their ill-gotten gains. And nobody will really be the wiser for it. But, when I see when the news media, the first pass at truth is by people who don't have the evidence, typically. I mean, the real evidence is and that's the lesson we're learning now, that implicating evidence is got to be buried, particularly if you're worried about crimes that involve being killed, like treason. And so that said, some of this implicating evidence is finally coming to light. And when we think about the arc, which is a downward arc, I think, of Jeffrey Epstein's career, it just wouldn't pass. A real fact checker at a publishing house would say this is just fiction. This is bullshit. From the very beginning, it's bullshit. And we've talked about it in the past. There's no way that the parents at Dalton would have said, yeah, it's okay for a 20-year-old who never went to college to teach my kid physics, in a trajectory where at Dalton, well, certainly in Horace Mann, the physics course was an AP course, meaning that it was an honors course, and those parents who wanted to save money and have their kids go through college in 3 years rather than 4 could encourage them to take physics, pass the class, but also take the advanced placement test and get one full year's course credit off of their requirements, to go to a good university. So there's no way that he really taught physics. He might have been a tutor. I could see that. People reasoning, look, he's close to these kids' age. He'll relate well to them. He can help the kids who are having trouble. He can mentor them, God forbid. But then to go from that into Bear Stearns, ostensibly because Ace Greenberg, the CEO then of Bear Stearns, or managing partner, had a kid at Dalton, or a friend who had a kid at Dalton, and to say that he got into Bear Stearns with no college degree from being a tutor at a private school, that's fanciful. I mean, if he got into Bear Stearns, maybe Bear Stearns was it was an outlier firm. It was a firm back then that was, I don't know, it was not in the mainstream on Wall Street. Did not get, the best clients. It took on sketchy clients. And so then to work there, various accounts say that he went and he was a partner. He rose to be a partner. He was never a partner at Bear Stearns. He might have been a limited partner. And he might have gone around with a Bear Stearns business card, going to bars, talking up other, questionable characters, and bringing those questionable characters into a Bear Stearns, maybe to drum up business. It's possible that he could have done that. From there, he's kicked out of Bear Stearns, is what the narrative I've read, and the suspicion was that he was engaged in insider trading. He was, at Bear Stearns, he would have been privy to, or might have been privy to, what the deals that people were hatching that were not necessarily public. And if he became aware of a transaction where a company that was trading in the market at a certain price was about to be the subject of a hostile takeover, he could whisper around to people and say, you should buy call options on the stock of the target. Highly illegal. And the suspicion is that he was drummed out of Bear Stearns for doing just that. He goes from there to set up his own firm, and how he would have done that is a mystery. He also takes over, whether I forget if he went to work for Hoffenberger first, Towers Financial first, or if he set up his own firm first. But along this timeline, the property of Iran of the Shah of Iran is seized, and somehow Epstein gets to lease a property before he gets the townhouse that had of a building that I think had been owned, or at least that had been entered into by the government of Iran. How he gets that transaction with this kind of checkered track record is beyond me. Then he goes to work for this Hoffenberg guy, who goes away to prison, I think, for like 18 years for fraud. And Epstein is centrally involved in this, never charged, never convicted, yet the CEO goes to prison for 18 years for fraud. Not many people on Wall Street or connected to Wall Street go to prison for fraud, though many should, in my opinion, including you can't exhume Jack Welch and put him in prison, but if I could, I would, at General Electric. So, with this kind of very, very sketchy career, he then goes out with a business plan at some point along this trajectory to handle clients who can give him $1 billion or more. Now, I can tell you that to do that today would be tough if you were a reputable person. To do that in the time frame where he allegedly said he did that is fanciful. No billionaire, nobody would give this schmuck $1 billion or more for good reason. There's no way. I can categorically no way. And we don't have in this country one intelligence agency. We have supposedly at least 17. You're telling me, not you, Jason, but the mainstream legacy, telling me that our 17 agencies in this country and comparable ones in large people around the world didn't sniff out this bullshit long, long ago.
Wait,
and I'm
Charles,
telling you.
One question. I think you probably already know about this, but they're saying not only did they rent this, first of all, how does the State Department get into renting townhouses to people? Like, do they have a rental division? I mean, this is just crazy. But they sued him for subletting it. Like, what the hell is going on?
Right. And so, every time, and I'll just recount this thing. The first time I went to see Nick Brady, when he was Treasury Secretary, the building is a famous building. The Treasury Secretary back then in the 80s, the Secret Service reported to the Treasury Secretary. So, and actually, the idea of the Fort Knox, et cetera, lots of big money issues were controlled by the Treasury Secretary. So security was intense. And I was there with Chris Brady, who's one of his sons, and Chris Brady is the spitting image of his father. And there was a portrait, as there are in all these big buildings, of the current Treasury Secretary and other Treasury Secretaries right there when you're checking in. So I present my ID, sailed through. Chris didn't have any ID. Why he didn't bring any ID, I don't know. And the fucking security guards are just giving him a really hard time. Why are you here? My name is Christopher Douglas Brady. I am the son of that man. Do you notice the family resemblance? Eventually he gets in. But, security was pretty tight just on a visitor getting in. There's no way that any kind of legitimate security test on Jeffrey Epstein at any moment when he tried to conduct business with the U.S. government at a high level would have missed all of these gigantic problems, right? inside trader, sketchy firm, no college degree. There's no way. So somebody must have did some dirty person or group of dirty people in government must have said, this is a useful schlemiel, or whatever the right phrase is. This is a useful guy who we've got him by the balls. We need to do things or have things done that are illegal. And we need to, create this guy, create this fiction that he's a, wealthy financier. And we need to get as much dirt as possible on all the sketchy people who would interact with somebody like this idiot. And that must have been the program. And there have to be enormous records to put somebody away, to make a decision, to put Hoffenberg on trial, and then to sentence him to 18 years in the slammer, the federal slammer. The files on that are big, unless they've been destroyed. And Epstein was a central player in that whole mess. So who's been over those files? If you haven't been over the files, why not? And on this decision to lease that space, who made that decision? Who was the Secretary of State then, or who, under that person? Who made that decision? And then on the very questionable Les Wexner, his whole story just doesn't make sense to me. And certainly going and of all the financial advisors out there in the world, to give 100% of your wealth or your investable wealth to this schmuck, that he didn't do that for a good reason. Then you get later on the Leon Black. I've met Leon Black. He's a cheap bastard. There is no way. You talk to anybody who knows anything about high-level finance, there is no way that he paid a financial advisory fee to Epstein of over $100 million for a good reason. There is no way. People do not like to pay financial advisory fees. They pay, if you're going to sell a bit, I sold Wilson, now I can say it, I sold Wilson Sporting Goods for $165 million in 1984. The next bid was $19 million. People were really happy at the client that I sold it for $165 million, right? So you'll pay a nice commission to somebody who does that for you. Instead of getting 19, you get 165. You might pay a very big commission, but you're not going to, because somebody gives you an idea on how to structure your finances, you don't pay him more than 100 million. Likely Leon Black was bribing Epstein, did not tell the whole truth about whatever mess he was in.
Charles, isn't it also possible, though, that Epstein could have been a funnel for that money? We don't know what Leon Black was doing. We'll come back to Leon Black in just a second, because I don't want to move off of Hoffenberg just yet. We have spoken about this before, but I don't know if do we understand exactly how Hoffenberg died? Because he wasn't that old. He was 77, and there was this other article we were just looking at where he got out of prison and he said he wants to help the Epstein victims. And now I just realized in 2022 he was found dead. And they say he became dead. He became dead, and he was there for 7 days before they even found him. Seems a little weird. Cause of death is pending. I wonder if they ever decided how many times he shot himself in the back of the head.
Is this 2022? You say he was found dead?
Yeah.
So this is after Epstein was found dead?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
2019, Epstein became dead.
But now apparently I didn't have the time to do this, but there is a site that has 20,000 Epstein emails, new Epstein emails on it. And I just punched in Clinton Foundation, and there were, I think, 23 different ones that pop up. The whole narrative on Epstein helping Bill Clinton, and now Bill Clinton has given a non-denial, very carefully worded response given by, of all people, Angel Fruit in Head Urena from the Dominican Republic, who's still working for Clinton. I mean, you wonder about that. But, the story about how Jeffrey Epstein, the first reporting on it was, I think, in 2001 or two, maybe two, in the New Yorker and the Intelligencer, I think either in the Intelligencer column or a column like it. I think it was a title like International Man of Mystery or something. And It was the
Or
first
like the
time that
fabulous Mr. Epstein or something like that.
something like that, yeah, and it was the first time his name came to people's attention. You have to appreciate that in Wall, and I retired in 2002 from Wall Street, but I did know in the course of my career and afterwards a lot of I still know a lot of very powerful people that, you know, I might go to or somebody might go to if you really needed expert advice in finance. You know, right below Methuselah, you know, our friend from Washington Square Park who, you know, no shirt and no shoes in the winter, sleeping on a cardboard box. Right below him, I would put Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, the talented Mr. Epstein. And, you know, if you have a talent, you know, what exactly is this specific talent? It's not general genius. I mean, by 2002, there were a lot of very, very shrewd investors around the world. And, you know, when you check to be an investor, you have to have accounts. And when you check on the, you know, with the heads of Goldman Sachs is one place where a lot of people like to have an account. You know, they've never heard of the guy. They don't see his trades. So, you know, what is his actual acumen? You know, I think what he was is he was basically just prepared. He had a bankroll, he had protection, and it was all fiction. You know, somebody arranged for him to have the fancy townhouse. Somebody arranged for him to have the jets and the helicopters and the island and all this kind of stuff. There is a need in the dirty community to turn dirty money into supposedly clean money. I know because I had two experts with me in 2016 and early June who claimed then that the fee for doing that is 20%. You know, so you've got $1 million, you want to turn it into clean money, you're going to have to give up $200,000 of that money. You know, now that, if you're close to that end of the world, that would explain the townhouse, the jets, and all this kind of stuff. And if you're
Sorry.
What's that? Should I keep talking?
Yes, that was a mistake by me.
Okay, but anyway, that would explain, you know, somebody, you know, this ne'er-do-well, this accomplished bungler, I would say, being manipulated into a position where he's doing what he did. Now, if he's so freaking smart, you know, why would he look, you know, in New York City, in New York State, in the U.S., inside the U.S., where the laws on the books are very strict pertaining to foundations, why would this smart guy decide in September of 2002, or by September of 2002, to host at his expense trips around Africa for a president who's not listed anywhere, former president not listed anywhere on Clinton Foundation documents? If he had his lawyers look for articles and bylaws, he'd find those. But if he asked the lawyers to say, you know, what is this foundation supposed to do? They would come back and say, well, certainly not what it's currently doing. You know, and there's no way he would have said, oh, this is great. You know, let me lend my considerable financial acumen to assist. But while this Clinton Foundation is publicly known, it's under an FBI investigation, which by January of 2002 was being led by none other than James Comey. So why would Epstein have done this? For a good reason. There's no good reason. People around, the dirty people in the FBI and the deep state would have said, all right, this Clinton is just incorrigible, Bill. He will never, this leopard will never change his spots. And actually, to that point, some of the funny emails that have come out is there's an email, I think from, is it January 2019 or thereabouts, where Epstein is on the record saying, I think to Karen Rumler or somebody like her, that, you know, he can't trust Bill Clinton. He's a congenital liar. This is a liar saying he can't trust another liar, you know. And all this stuff is known. All these emails we're talking about now in 2025, the FBI, the deep state had, but at the moment they were typed. You know? So this is the kind of stuff I expect to see. And we haven't seen the full panoply of these emails. right?
But I mean, isn't this sort of? I mean, everybody was all over Trump to release the Epstein files, and now he's releasing them, and nobody is saying anything because it's talking about all kinds of people other than Trump.
And Democrats in particular.
Yeah,
You know, the
people around
Democratic
Obama.
Obama himself. You know,
Well, and this guy Michael Wolff. But Rumler is an important one. We should talk a bit more about her. No.
all right. Yeah. So here I have, you know, this cost me $40, and you know, I watch my money carefully, but this piece of shit book cost me $40, and it says you know, I don't. It says in there, I directed my lawyers to retrieve a physical copy of my birth certificate from the bound volume in the archives of the, you know, Hawaii government office. That's what it says in the book. Now, I didn't write that book. I didn't publish that book. I didn't fact check that book. But the person who flew out on a plane to come back with an electronic version of this birth certificate was Catherine Rumler. She was the deputy White House counsel who then, because she did such a good job of that, was promoted after Bob Bauer left and served as White House counsel under Barack Obama. Okay? And so this retrieval effort for the document occurred before Bob Bauer set up the monstrosity currently known as the Barack Obama Foundation. Okay? So Rumler is somebody who, if we're talking about targets of investigation, I mean, she needs to be subjected to the most vigorous investigation that the FBI and DOJ and IRS could ever hope to accomplish. She needs to be totally dry cleaned because she is at the center of this. She knows exactly what she did going at. Why did you come back with why didn't you just tell them to email it to you?
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't need to spend first-class airfare or have your lawyers do that if they're outside counsel. Why did you do this?
She'd be helped by Invisalign as well. Charles, did you realize that Bob Bauer is a distinguished, what did it say here? He's distinguished something at NYU. He's professor of practice and distinguished scholar in residence at NYU Law.
Why isn't he, professor of legal integrity?
Because he's
married to Anita Dunn, who said when she worked in the Obama White House, she had to leave because some speech or comment emerged where she said her political idol was Chairman Mao, who killed how many people? I mean, this is these Epstein emails that are coming out, I would argue, are incendiary, but not against Trump. And what we're going to find out here, I've been through this before. When you ask somebody for all of their files on a subject, you have to be very careful in how you answer that, because normally you have to read carefully everything that you turn over. Because in one important case I can discuss, I did this and I quickly determined that they were lying. So then I turned the heat way up, and I determined they were lying again. I determined they were congenital liars. And the way I did that is I got, thousands of pages of documents, read most of it myself. And, you see something further to your letter of December 14th, whatever, here's my response. And there's no letter of December 14th in the file. So now that we have 20,000 emails and maybe more, people around the world, not in legacy media because they don't believe in working on any project that might embarrass the deep state, but the community of people around Crowdsource the Truth and others are going to go through these emails, and we're going to begin to see the extent to which somebody who had spent time under house arrest and in a pled down situation, we still don't understand yet why it was pled down, why he was able to work from home basically, and still have Girl Scouts give him massages, right?
Courtesy of
But with
Dersh.
that, normally, when you're a billionaire, or a very rich person, and you've been around the track a little bit, and you know how you can be attacked, normally the first person you don't turn to for advice is somebody like Jeffrey Epstein. So, what was Jess Staley thinking over at J.P. Morgan? You know, what were the compliance people at J.P. Morgan thinking? What was Jamie Dimon, the current CEO of J.P. Morgan, thinking about the extent to which this idiot Epstein was, coursing billions of dollars through the J.P. Morgan system?
Charles, let me pause
Nobody's.
you right there because we are just about out of time. We're going to continue the conversation in the First Amendment Forum, and there's a lot more to discuss. People are going to be able to join us on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And also people who follow me on X at JG_CSTT and subscribe there are going to be able to watch. We got to talk more about these Epstein emails, and there's